Hello and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite from Tuesday and Wednesday nights and try and figure out which show won for the week. Yes, I am aware the war is technically over, but in the minds of many fans, the war is never over. But we'll talk more about the whole war aspect between NXT and AEW on this channel a little later in this video. But speaking of, weekly reviews, I hope you all have had a chance to listen to the re-debut of the Raw review, now with the dulcet radio voice of Jay Biggs narrating the action and giving his thoughts and analysis on Raw. We did a test run of this actually last week on Patreon, and that was met with overwhelming positivity, and I did not think doing the first episode this week on the main channel was going to be met with the same response, but more or less it was. Like, so many people were in glowing favor and approval of this new version of the Raw review with Biggs at the helm. Biggs and I have been wanting to get him on the channel more in a review capacity for a very long time, but video editing's never been a strong suit, so how can we find that compromise? And we feel this is kind of a good way to get there, get Jay's foot in the door finally as a recurring role on this channel. And so far y'all been very supportive and positive about it, and we're very confident in this new direction, so thank you very much for your support on that. You can hear him more with the SmackDown review happening this Saturday, but of course that's all happening on Saturday. But for right now, like what you like, don't be a dick. Unless I missed it last week, this week's NXT has a brand new intro, and the show opens with Kyle O'Reilly, and he is laid back. He's in party mode. He's vanquished the beast of Adam Cole Bay. He's going to finally come out of his shell and relax a little bit. But he talks about how at TakeOver, he found that killer instinct that separated himself from Adam all these years. So he found the killer instinct. That's what put Cole away, and he realizes that's what you need to have in order to be successful in NXT. He makes a really forced segue between making a reference to time and calling out Karrion Kross when Cameron Grimes interrupts, and he wants to invest in Kyle's future. He wants to make a whole bunch of cool Kyle merchandise, Kyle O'Reilly NFTs, what have you. Kyle actually goes along with it and kind of plays into Cameron's pitch for a while. It's actually very funny and endearing at this point. He announces he is clear to compete tonight, and who will his opponent be? Oh, it's Cameron Grimes. He pops him in the mush, and then he does a cool Kyle pose, and then he leaves. That's the end of the opening segment. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like cool Kyle. I kind of like this new version of Kyle O'Reilly where he seems to be, just being himself out there. I seem to like the humor wavelength he's on right now. Maybe don't overdo it. I think this feels kind of a cool, kind of natural, fun-loving thing as opposed to a forced cheesiness or goofiness we saw, say, with like John Cena or Sheamus in his big babyface run many years ago. That's what it kind of reminds me of. But we haven't gotten quite there yet. This feels more natural and more organic with Kyle for sure. The new NXT signee Sarray shows up outside, and William Regal comes out to greet her. Zoe Stark shows up and basically challenges her to a match for her debut match right here tonight on NXT. Regal okays it and Sarray accepts it. And even though there's no chance in hell Zoe is winning this matchup later on, at least it puts her over in challenging the veteran Sarray like that. It shows that she is confident beyond her years. So at least in that respect, she gains a bit of clout in my opinion. Then we hear from LA Knight cutting a promo on Dexter Lumis where he says he will off Dexter's on switch, and now it's not an insult, it's a way of life. Like, okay, you're like 90% there with a good phrase. It's very old school vibe about him where he can say like two different phrases like that, and they don't quite mesh well, but he has the confidence to pull it off and actually make it sound cool. LA Knight taking on Lumis next in this matchup here. I actually like this matchup. I love this moment where Lumis spooks Knight and he backs up to the point where he crotches himself on the ring post. Fighting on the outside, we see Indy Hartwell on the other side of the barricade, and she and Dexter stare longingly at each other. They're about to kiss or something on the barricade, but LA just decks Lumis from behind. Lumis once again distracted by Indy's gaze on the outside that allows Knight to capitalize and hit some kind of finishing move that looks kind of like shit, but that's all it takes for LA to win here. And then afterward, we see Indy get on the apron and she leans in for a kiss, and then before anything can happen though, the rest of the way grab her and they carry her off away from the evil Dexter Lumis here. I thought the match was great, and the story they're telling here between Dexter and Indy has my attention so far, and it's at the beginning of a larger arc with them later tonight, so I say let it ride. We hear Leon Ruff cutting a promo on Swerve saying he's tired of playing games, and then we get a pre-taped sit-down interview between Beth Phoenix and the former women's champion Io Shirai, getting her thoughts on the match at TakeOver against Raquel Gonzalez. Puts Raquel over in a big way here, and she says, now it's time for me to rest. I've been the champion for so long, defending this belt, going so hard. I gotta let my body rest and recuperate. And then suddenly we see Frankie Monet and her dog kind of stumble into the shot. So Frankie once again introducing herself to the viewers and to Io Shirai and saying, hey, if you're gonna be on vacation, I'll take over your spot as the top of the women's division. And then Io gets up and talks some trash to Frankie in Japanese, which just bewilders and confuses Frankie, and that's pretty much where it ends. So again, we're kind of getting more of the idea of Frankie as kind of this antagonizer, this person who interrupts people and tries to assert herself into things when she doesn't really belong at that point yet in the kayfabe sense. And so if this is kind of the end of Io for a while she goes on break, I think she had a hell of a run, and it'll be good to see her back when she's more recharged. And I think hopefully if she's gone for a little while, the women's division under Raquel as champion will have some time to kind of like shift and marinate a little bit and get strong just in time for Io to come back in. I think a little bit of time with her out of the picture and letting Raquel and the rest of the cast kind of build things up on her absence could be good for the whole division. Breezango take on the Grizzled Young Veterans up next, and Tyler Breeze and Fandango are doing a bit of a mock-up of the Queen's Guards with the big tall fuzzy hats to start the thing off, and Zach Gibson takes great offense to this and saying the fun and games will get Breezango nowhere. It's a fine little match here. There's a moment near the end where James Drake fakes a leg injury to get everyone calmed down out of momentum. They fight back and everything. Ticket to Mayhem on Breeze for GYV to stand tall. Fine little match for them, just build momentum for these guys as presumptive contenders for MSK's tag titles down the line. Backstage, Indy Hartwell wants to be interviewed, but the rest of the way want no part of that, and they shut that down. Bronson Reed shows up and kind of mocks Johnny Gargano and says he's coming for the North American Championship. Austin Theory takes offense to that. He refers to Gargano as Papa John, and basically putting Papa John in danger by challenging Reed to a match next week where if Reed wins, he gets the North American title shot against Gargano, and Papa John is not thrilled about that. And then elsewhere, we see Cameron Grimes being interviewed about what happened earlier. He's reading his NFT certificate he has, but it says he's been outbid at the last minute by Ted DiBiase, and that appears to be, it seems to me that where they're going with this whole Cameron Grimes is suddenly rich on stonks angle is he's going to have some kind of confrontation with the $1 Million Man. Really? I mean, unless it ends with Cameron just like slapping him repeatedly with his hat, and that's the end of it, I don't like where this is going. I don't want to see Ted DiBiase get rolled up with, get mixed up with these NXT kids. Like, let them do their own thing and maybe keep the legends out of it, unless DiBiase is there strictly to put over Grimes. Zoe Stark taking on the latest Japanese sensation to sign with NXT, Sarray, in her in-ring debut. Some very good back and forth here, although I will admit, nothing too special seemed about Sarray in this match. Nothing that I saw in this match that caught my eye or felt worthy of the amount of hype they've been giving her. But in fairness, this is her first time around, her first match, and get the feeling there's a lot she has left kind of saved in the chamber for later and bigger matches with higher stakes. Zoe looks pretty strong here, but in the end, she's taken out with a knee, and then a pinfall that feels botched for a second, but ultimately stands, and so Sarray wins the match. Afterward, Toni Storm beats up Zoe on the outside, and Sarray, the good sport that she is, kind of fends her off and protects Zoe from further damage. Like I said, solid debut match. Didn't see anything that really wowed me, but nothing was screwed up either, so I think the expectations are just particularly high given the success and the track record NXT's had with their Japanese imports like Asuka and Kairi Sane and Io Shirai. So big expectations here. This first match didn't blow me away, but there's plenty of time for that to change. Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai are interviewed next backstage, but honestly Dakota seems to be doing most of the talking here, kind of talking for Raquel at some points, talking trash about Mercedes Martinez as well. Raquel says that she will take everyone down one by one until no one is left. Then later on, we actually get a rebuttal from Mercedes here where she accuses Dakota of kind of talking for Raquel and saying that Raquel is just Dakota's lapdog. So she's going to be facing, Mercedes that is, will take on Dakota next week on NXT. Looking forward to that one. Then elsewhere backstage, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell are looking to confront Shotzi and Ember, the women's tag team champions, but Indy gets lost and gets distracted because Dexter Lumis is in the background looking creepy. They get lost in each other's eyes is when Candice thinks that Indi's still behind her and has her back. She goes to confront Ember and Shotzi, and she gets beat up by her lonesome for her troubles. Then later on, we see the kind of the conclusion of this arc where Candice kind of staggers back to the locker room all beat up, can't really talk about what happened. Then Indi Hartwell comes back in and says she actually has a match set up for next week with her and Candice going against Ember and Shotzi for the tag belt. So kind of doing Candice's work for her in a way that she didn't get beat up. Interesting way they're taking this whole arc with Dexter and Indi and how the Way are involved as well was an interesting little loop they had. And as far as next week's title match goes, like, it will be good to eventually see Shotzi and Ember move on to a different tag team as champions here, or at least contending in the scene. But like after them, like, who's left? There's like no other women's tag teams. I'm kind of shocked that, you know, maybe how little foresight was put into making the tag belts for the NXT women's division. Because at the beginning it felt like, oh, so optimistic. Oh, they have such a better handle on their women's division. They can easily do more with it. But you would also think if you're going to do that, you would have some like actual women's tag teams like ready to go and like in that scene. Right now, it's just been Dakota and Raquel, and right now it's more Raquel being the champion than anything else, the singles champion. Then there's Candice and Indi, and then there's Ember and Shotzi. That's literally it. Makes you kind of wish the women's tag belts on Raw and SmackDown were floating on this brand again. Well, after last week's shocker, Kushida became the new Cruiserweight champion, beating Santos Escobar in that open challenge. This week he's debuting a new look. No more Marty McFly jacket or jeans for him. He's got shorts and taped ankles. So he's got an open challenge of his own for the belt, and Oni Lorcan answers the call. Very solid match here. Good TV match. Great graps. Good hard-hitting action. In the end, Kushida leaps into the hoverboard lock and makes Lorcan tap out. So title retained there. Good first match out for there as Kushida as new champion. Right afterward, though, he is jumped by Legado del Fantasma, and Santos wants a piece of the action as well. But then MSK run in and make the save, and they chase off the baddies. And so you know where this is going. Next week, 6-man tag team match, playa. EVERERISE takes on Imperium up next. Pretty short match. The real story here is Killian Dane still wanting a piece of Alexander Wolf after the history they've had, and Alexander choosing his side, picking Imperium over his past as Sanity and Killian Dane. Drake Maverick wants a shot as well, but Killian carries him off. EVERERISE almost get an upset win, but not really. European bomb for Eichner and Bartel to win in emphatic fashion. Kyle O'Reilly bumps into Karrion Kross and Scarlett on the way to the ring for our next match, our main event, as Kyle takes on Cameron Grimes. This is another fine match if you're into that gritty technical style these two are so well known for. Cameron working Kyle's neck for the bulk of the match, and it's just great work, especially near the end of the match. Like counters upon counters at the end. The build of the finish is really done well. And in the end, Kyle hits the diving knee to the back of the head to win the match as we wrap up this show. I like that Kyle on this show can be kind of funny and laid back in the opening of the show, but still gets to be serious and take care of business in the ring. That's a great combination. Something I've always appreciated about the funny wrestlers that I enjoy is that they can still be serious and just do what they have to do when they wrestle and put a lot of the funny business to the side. I think it's a good blend for the character of Kyle O'Reilly now, and I think it's a solid main event to close the show. Before I move on to AEW, though, I'm trying something a little different this week on Who Wore It Better. I'm going to give each show a letter grade for the week before I make a determination on who the winner is. So this week, my grade for NXT is a B-. I really enjoyed this week's show, the arc with Indi Hartwell and Dexter Lumis. That's a bit of foreshadowing there, a bit of shipping I'm doing here. That arc I thought was pretty entertaining. Kushida and Lorcan was a great impromptu match, and the main event of Grimes and O'Reilly was pretty solid as well. The one knock I really had against this show this week was just how underwhelming Sarray's debut felt. After all the hype we've been hearing about her, I'm not expecting her to be just total gangbusters out the gate, but I think that for all that hype, something better than that match should have been. I think, honestly, it benefited ZOEY Stark more than Sarray, if I'm being honest. AEW begins the match between Hangman Page and Absolute Ricky Starks as Taz joins the guys on commentary. Kind of a scary moment early in this match where Page goes for a German suplex and Starks is supposed to land on his feet, but he doesn't quite get the full rotation, so he just kind of lands and crunches his head and neck on the way down. But he's fine for the rest of this, it seems. Starks showing his power as the match goes on. Like he goes for a power bomb and he's got to just kind of like hoist and just use all his muscle. And Page is kind of going like a sack of shit, but he makes it work for the Liger bomb. Page wins with a rare submission here. Got a bulldog choke with a leg grab as well to truly bend him backwards. So Starks taps out and Page wins. Taz on the mic saying that Page got lucky and to watch his back. And sure enough, Hook, who was at ringside for this match, he chop blocks Page from behind. So he and Starks beat down on him. Brian Cage shows up and looks to put him away. And the Dark Order show up and chase the baddies off. So we are, so Page is safe for another day. Pretty good opening match here, and Page looking pretty strong here as usual. Trent takes on PENTA El Zero Miedo up next. You got Orange Cassidy in Trent's corner and Alex Abrahante still leaning into the heel manager or mouthpiece thing for PENTA. We get another one of those pre-match promos with the two of them as well. It's a pretty good match here as Trent finally begins to mount a proper offensive though. Alex on the microphone and kind of relays a belated message from PENTA saying, "You suck and your friends suck and your mother sucks." So the Scott Steiner, "No, your mother sucks!" And that's enough to piss Trent off. Chases him through the ring and that creates a distraction. Orange Cassidy's laid out. Alex hits Trent with a microphone. That allows PENTA to hit the package pile driver to win. So again, seeing Abrahantes in this heel role, I'm starting to warm up to it, but I'm just really kind of at a loss for the Lucha Brothers because it seems every week they are just bopping back and forth. Are they face? Are they heel? It always seems to be just depending on what the plot requires. And that I don't really like with wrestling and with characters like that. I think they need to be definitively face or heel. Phoenix definitely seems to lean more babyface and the announcers definitely treat him more as such. But they still team together and then when they're together, then they're babyfaces. I don't know. The shades of gray is one thing, but it's just very confusing when they go back and forth like that. And PENTA especially alternates from tag teaming and being a singles guy with Alex Abrahantes. Jim Ross interviewing the Pinnacle in a pre-taped segment, and you've got MJF being gifted a new silk Burberry scarf from Tully Blanchard by way of Wardlow. And as MJF's putting the silk scarf on, Wardlow, who's the only other person in the Pinnacle who had some mic time in this promo, talks about Chris Jericho and the big promo he cut 2 weeks ago. That's a great promo he had there. King of the promos. Nice promo. Just dropping that word over and over again. But brings up that when Jericho mentioned Wardlow in his Immortal promo, that's when he began to slip up because he knew he was afraid of Wardlow. MJF finally gets time to talk. He commands this interview here. He talks about how Jericho, or he claims that Jericho, surrounds himself with other more popular people to keep himself relevant, and how the so-called Jericho rub, all these other wrestlers he's made popular in AEW, are people who already were popular, and now Jericho just takes credit for it, including MJF. He says that at age 25, Jericho was curtain jerking WCW worldwide, while MJF is already a top guy. He says he's not a mark for Jericho, he's a mark for Jericho's spot, and he promises big time doom and gloom for Blood and Guts and for the Inner Circle and for Jericho on May 5th. I thought it was a great promo. I think that I felt kind of bad though because the interview's the Pinnacle. No, they interviewed MJF and Wardlow got a bit of a featured role in it, but the other guys just sat there and smiled and everything. I'd love to hear more from those guys. Women's title on the lineup next as Hikaru Shida defends against Tai Conti. A real success story in AEW as of late, picking up a lot of momentum in the last couple of months has Conti. They show you a snippet of the promo package for this thing before the matchup. The full extended version's on social media, and it's really well done, so I recommend you check that out. Some good striking and submission work between the two here. Tai comes back with some big judo throws. Both ladies do some big devastating moves off or on or around the top turnbuckle. Shida kicks out of the Tai KO. Shida with a backbreaker and a big katana knee strike to win and retain the championship. And like I said, this is probably Conti's biggest test to date. Looking really good in defeat here, and I think that Shida looks stronger with every defense. And after the matchup, we hear Dr. Britt Baker's music. She gets on stage and she points to the screen. You see the rankings, and she's now declared the #1 ranked women's wrestler in the division under, of course, the champion Shida. So we'll be getting that inevitable confrontation between these two at some point. When's that going to happen? Time will tell. We get a promo package from Miro here where he says, if you got a championship, you've got a problem with Miro. He says he doesn't care if you hang out with somebody with a slimy impact mouth or an emo face paint daddy. Which champion will he go after? Time will tell, but he will not be kept from his destiny, he says. Very strong words from Miro here. And up next, Tony Schiavone in the ring to interview the Inner Circle and get their rebuttal on MJF's strong words from earlier. Jericho, you can see in his eyes, he's been partying a little bit, it seems here, or just not getting enough sleep, or maybe it's allergies, but he basically he sings a song about Max and how he gave him a swirly a couple of weeks ago. And then he says, he gets really intense again and says, May 5th, may God have mercy on your souls, and hopefully you own your souls because the Inner Circle will own your asses. And again, very fiery promo here. It has very similar vibes to the one he did a couple of weeks ago that they referenced in the Pinnacle promo, but much shorter and to the point and not so, scattershot all the different members here. So it was basically a truncated version of what we saw a couple weeks ago, it feels like. It's family versus factory as Billy Gunn takes on QT Marshall, who's accompanied by Aaron Solo and Nick Comoroto, who, and this is kind of a bone to pick I have with this moment right here. Like, why would you have somebody like Comoroto hide his impressive physique with this big, bulky, albeit badass jacket? Seems kind of counterintuitive in my opinion. Anyway, a couple minutes into the match, Comoroto decks Gunn from behind. That prompts Billy's sons, Austin and Colton, to jump him and Aaron Solo. They brawl their way up the ramp and everything and out of sight. You've got this moment here where Anthony Ogogo, minutes later, with a body shot to Billy, what the referee can't see. Same move that just brought down his opponent last week. So QT pins and wins in kind of a sneaky way. And then as they want to do more damage, Dustin Rhodes shows up with the bull rope, beats up QT for a bit, hits Comoroto with this like old wooden chair and just like shatters to a million pieces off of Nick's head. He doesn't sell it at all, and so then they all kind of split apart there. I thought that was a very good way to great way getting the factory over here, showing Comoroto as just this strong beast of a guy. Like, I think makes up for the fact they covered his body up most of the time with that jacket. I think him showing the strength and the resiliency was a good look as well, and showing Ogogo as more of a threat. So yeah, bit by bit, they're building the factory pretty well. We get an interview with the Elite in their private trailer, and you see Matt Jackson talking about how, these are the guys who help business go up in Japan, and they're the reason the wrestling t-shirts being sold at Hot Topic these days. Kenny Omega starts to talk, but suddenly we hear all this honking outside the trailer, and it's distracting him. We cut to the outside and see Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston in a truck, and they're the ones honking, and they ram into the trailer, and they make it move several feet in one direction. They go in there to jump the place, but the guys have already escaped. How? Where'd they go? It's like they must have ran out in the moment they cut away to see them in the truck because there was that pause there. But it was interesting. They were just kind of there and then they weren't. There you go. Moxley and Kingston not done with the Elite as of this moment. And that's pretty much all there's to say about it this week. Powerhouse Hobbs takes on Christian Cage up next, and Taz is back on commentary for this one. Hobbs takes over pretty quickly with a big blow to the back of Christian's head, just beats him up for the bulk of the commercial break as well. Finally, Christian blocks a Vader bomb attempt to get a comeback going. Hobbs hits a stampede in the corner, but Christian slips out, hits the kill switch to win. So Team Taz 0-2 on the evening, but Christian looking still pretty impressive here as he gets his footing in AEW. We hear from Jade Cargill where she says multiple managers in AEW are gunning to sign her, and we hear from Vicky Guerrero and Matt Hardy about this as well. But she says that she's her own boss, and that if anyone wants to sign with her, they better make a hell of a deal. I kind of like the idea of a Jade Cargill sweepstakes where all these different managers in AEW compete to sign her and get her services and stuff. And I think that can make for a compelling storyline, and the payoff could also be interesting depending on who they pick if they choose to go that route, but we will have to see. Main event time, TNT Championship as Jungle Boy challenges Darby Allin, old Darbs. Apparently this was kind of left to a fan vote and fan reactions to who would challenge Darby this week, and Jungle Boy was the resounding winner. Great match here in the main event, some great athleticism from these two and some tenacity on display. Jungle Boy with 3 straight dives to the outside, Darby with a coffin drop on the apron to Jungle Boy. Later on, Sting, who's at ringside in Darby's corner, takes offense to Luchasaurus helping Jungle Boy get up and back in the ring. Those two old dinosaurs, Luchasaurus and Sting, fighting their way to the back. In the end, you've got this moment where the snare trap is locked in by Jungle Boy, but Darby fights dirty to get out of it, catches him in the Last Supper to win and retain. I thought it was a great match, thought it was a great defense. Then afterward, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky jump both of them, start to beat up Darby and everything, and then suddenly Sting comes back. Well, Lance Archer shows up first, and he gets thwarted. Then Sting comes back with the bat, chases off Ethan Page and Scorpio. As we fade to black here, I never thought in a million years, first of all, they would put Ethan and Scorpio in a team so soon after they did the singles thing, but now it seems their first real program as a team, it seems to be going against Sting, it feels it's probably going to be more Darby and Lance, but it feels like they're feuding with Sting more than either of those guys right now. It's just, what a world, what a weird circumstance this is. So my grade for this week's Dynamite is a C+. There were a few things about the show I did enjoy, like MJF's portion of the promo with Pinnacle, and then I think the 2 title matches were great. Hikaru versus Tai was awesome, and I think there was a great showcase of these 2 up-and-coming young stars in AEW in Jungle Boy and Darby Allin for the TNT title. This thing I have against the show this week was, the matches were fine, but I don't think they did as much in character and like moments as they usually do. There were no real wow moments for me, no big takeaways. There were some good matches, but ultimately they're going to be kind of forgotten about in a few weeks' time. But there were no real moments that stood out to me in this one. And like, I think without that big hook, like it didn't feel like it had the same oomph as the last couple of weeks. Even Tyson, as silly and I think frivolous I think some celebrity appearances are, at least Tyson was more compelling than no Tyson this week, for example. So with those grades, my winner for this week is NXT. I think it was a stronger show overall this week. I think that they did a better job than AEW in doing character work and just kind of moments with characters and stuff. Which NXT is usually the weaker of the two when you talk about that, but I think they really came through with this one, had some great matches as well. AEW had some great matches, but they lacked that kind of character stuff that I really I live for when I watch these shows. So with that out of the way, now that we've seen this new kind of way I'm grading and picking winners this week, I want to address something that I heard in the return of Who Wore It Better last week. How, hey, the war is over. Why are we picking sides? Why are we picking winners? There are some people who don't really care, or people who do still have that competition in their minds, but there are some people who just believe, hey, let's these two shows stand on their own merit. And I kind of want to adhere to that as well. I'm kind of torn, so I want to hear from you guys. What if, instead of doing this thing where I pick a winner every week, we keep the grades and we just do a thing where I review NXT and AEW in one video? Call it the black and yellow block, for example, and we just say, hey, here what I thought of these shows. What do you think? And just leave it at that. Maybe not pick a winner. Maybe not keep score. If this war is indeed truly over, and they're on different nights now, so it's not the same as it was, maybe that means we need to restructure this a bit. Or maybe even keep Who Wore It Better because the name is cool. I like the intro, honestly. But then kind of lose the whole picking a winner every time and just keep with the grades. Like, what kind of permutation of that would you all prefer? I want to hear your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And above all else, I want to hear what you guys thought about NXT and AEW this week. Let me hear your thoughts, and of course, remember, later this week, you'll hear Jay Biggs' dulcet tones once again for the SmackDown review. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.